Alright, Oran Park Moto configuration, tracks 22 degrees. Obviously this is going to be low fuel, hot tires. I've seen, I think, the track up to 26 or 28 degrees, so that does make a big difference in terms of how much grip you have, so do be aware of that. This track, if you're new to it, it's fun to drive. If you're in a lower split, if you're in a second or third split, watch out. A lot of crashes happen on this track. It's also, if the car in front of you goes really defensive, this is a bit of a tricky track to try and pass on, unless you've got a lot more pace than the car in front of you. The description, or the setup, is in the description below. We'll go through the laps in slow-mo and then run it out at full speed. Basically, for the setup though, it's 5.8. If you're struggling for rear grip, a 7 will be a little more forgiving and help you learn the track, but 8 is going to be faster. So work your way up to 8 if you're needing a little bit of extra help. So coming into turn 1 here in 5th gear, sighting for this end of the barrier here, going to turn in. You're looking for the curbs up here. Again, this is a real big passing opportunity, or one of the better passing opportunity areas for the track, but it's also one of the crashiest spots on the track, so watch out. Basically, I'm lifting here. Again, when tires are cold, you definitely do want to be lifting here. Maybe even at this point shifting down into 4th. If you're brave, you can keep the throttle pinned, especially once the tires have a lot more grip. I'm shifting down into 4th when I reach this curb. Again, you could keep it into 5th, depending on how brave you are. The important thing though is when you get onto this curb, your wheel has to be pretty much straight. If you've got the wheel turned a bit when you hit this curb, it's going to unsettle the car and really want to kick your back end out. And if that happens, you're really going to be compromised getting into the next corner, setting yourself up for it. So in 4th and sighting for these cones on the left here, that's really where you want to get really pretty good on the brakes. You're sighting for the end of this curb. By the time you reach the end of this curb, you want to turn in and be in 1st gear. And basically just take some practice feeling out how much you have to brake. But pretty hard at the end there just to get the car slowed down enough. If you're carrying too much speed, you're not going to make the apex. That's what I did here. Ran it a little wide. Basically, it's a late apex when you can kind of line up to these green tires. That's kind of where you want to line up for the apex. Definitely want to be on getting on the full throttle by that point. Working your way up into 2nd, into 3rd gear. You can really run the car out wide here. You can use these curbs. They're not going to really upset the car all that much. So coming up here, one little special note, especially if you're too wide or something here and you're on the left side, these green tires, they're deceptive. Maybe it's a graphics thing or something, but if your tire is like close to this white line, it will actually bang your tire and probably wreck your alignment, or maybe even wreck your race. So just be aware of that. Make sure if you're too wide or something, you give these just a little extra room. You don't want to get up too tight to them because they can catch you out. So working your way back up into 3rd gear, you're sighting for these white tires here on the left. You can shift up into 4th, but I like to keep it in 3rd. At full speed, it looks like I'm braking at the end of these tires, but here in slow speed, I'm obviously braking a little bit before that. Shifting down into 1st, you don't want to be on this white curb. You'll lose grip. It will not be so nice for your trying to turn in here. So down into 1st, pretty heavy braking, and you really want to get tight up a along this curb on the right. You don't want to get onto this angled portion. It will upset the car and really slow you down quite a bit, but you want to get up as tight as you can to it and get on the throttle as early as possible, unwinding the wheel, working your way back up into second gear. These cones, I mean, there's always potential the cones might get stuck in your wing or something, so you may not try and avoid those. I think you can get onto this patch without getting a 1X, but you'll have to test that out. I'm not 100% sure on that. You don't have to get over here, but it's not going to hurt if you're a little bit more over to the right than I was. It'll straighten this section out a little bit more, but you want to work your way over to the left-hand side, and then, well, depending on what if your VR monitors or whatever, how well you can see, this is a hill, and basically in second gear you want to brake just as the hill starts to flatten out. Just before it flattens out, just use a little bit of that hill itself to help slow the car down, because this is another big braking zone. So second gear, pretty hard on the brakes, getting down into first, and then again getting up tight against this right hand side, again not getting onto that angled piece of the curb, and picking up the throttle as early as possible. You do want to unwind the wheel, however, I don't think you want to run all the way out to the edge. You want to try and shorten the track and work your way over to this curb over here. You also have to watch out if you did run it a bit wide. This white curb here you'll lose grip on it. Your back end can kick out, so watch out for that. And then, yeah, working your way over to this curb on to the right. You don't have to be right up against it, but headed in that direction, and just straightening the wheel as much as possible. Working your way up into third gear. So this section is a little tricky. You turn in a lot earlier than you think, so a good car length or two before the actual bridge here. Turning in third gear, cold tires, you're probably going to be wanting to lift here a lot more. Once I find about lap 5 is when the grip really starts to pick up, so once you get there, you can keep this pinned as long as you made the turn properly. And I like to snatch a little bit of this curb here. If you get too much onto the dirt, it's going to unsettle the car, and I think you can get a 1X. So keep it right up onto this curb. It just allows you to keep the throttle a lot better, and will help you make this next corner without running wide into the grass, because that is a bad thing. It will cost you a lot of time if you get onto the grass here. Working your way up into third gear, you can get up into fourth gear, but I like to hold it in third. You do want to be on the white here just to open this corner up. You definitely don't want to be on the dirt. And again, this is turning in earlier than you think, so about a car length before the checkered curb here. This is probably on cold tires, just a touch of brake, just a dab of brake. And again, you have to turn in a bit earlier than you think, and you want to line it up for this curb here. The tricky part is you want to get onto this curb and get onto the white patch, but you don't want to get onto the dirt. That is a 1X if you do that. So get onto this checkered curb and then work your way onto the white just to open up the next section. For this turn and the next turn, if you've missed your turn in, or you've come in a little hot and you turn the wheel too much and you're coming in too hot, your back end is really easy to kick out here, so watch out for that, especially on cold tires. Better to take an X than spin out. And then work your way up onto this checkered curb again, holding it in third gear. You can shift up into fourth gear around here. I prefer to hold it in third. It's just a little bit more consistent. And again, you're targeting this checkered curb here on cold tires. You're going to want to dab the brakes again. On hot tires, depending on how hot they are and how much fuel you got, it may just be a lift. But don't be afraid to dab the brakes on the early laps, because it's real easy to run wide here. You gotta get the tires onto this checkered curb section and the white section in order to keep from going wide and getting on the sand again and spinning out. So don't be afraid to lift if you've cooked it too much, because again, better to live for another lap than spin out here. And getting onto this curb, and you can use a little bit of this gray patch. And the trick is you can't get a tire onto the sand here, otherwise it is an X. Working way up into fourth, I've seen a lot of cars, they like to get out wide here for this next corner. Don't do that. It just extends the track. There's no need. You want to be mid-track, even a little bit to the right hand side, and then again sighting for this checkered curb. Don't get onto the dirt before it, otherwise it is an X there again. And then this gray patch, basically you want to be turning left. This is a blind corner, so you want to be turning left at that gray patch, straightening the wheel, and then sighting for this the black patch here. Now you actually will gain a little time if you cut this a little bit more, get your left tire onto the gray cement here. Again, if you're on the dirt, it's going to upset the car. I think you get an X, but even if you don't get an X, it still slows you down quite a bit. So if you're being aggressive, get onto this gray stuff. If you want to play it a little safe, keep your tire onto the black stuff, and it won't cost you much time. It maybe a couple of hundredths, that's it. So it's not very much. Working your way up into fourth gear. If you're drafting off someone, you might be getting up into fifth, but I do like to keep it in fourth. And basically you're kind of sighting for the dip in the road here. So at the base of the dip is when you want to brake down into second gear. Now in previous seasons, I have with the ride height at 5 on occasion, and I don't really know why sometimes and why not other times, I have bent a front wing in here. In practice for this season, I have not done it, so maybe that's something that's changed a little bit with the track or with the skip. But if you do end up bending a wing here, you may want to elevate that up into a 4, a +4, because it is a pain in the ass if you bend a wing for this track, especially in early laps. You will lose so much time. So pretty hard braking down into second gear. Again, this is a pretty late apex. You want to brake really hard, but then get off the brakes and pick up the throttle as early as possible, because this is obviously a great big straight that you're going to be leading up to. It is a late apex. Basically, you're looking for kind of this green light or power pole. You definitely want to be on the throttle by that point. You want to get your tire on this curb, but be careful not to get it over this curb. This is actually quite a slope here, and it will grab your tire and try and spin you out and cost you a heck of a lot of time. So make sure you get onto this curb but not over it. And open the wheel up as quickly as possible. Run the car out as wide as possible, trying just to accelerate as much as you can for this long straight, and getting up as close as you can to this wall, obviously without hitting it. You'll get a warning about pit entry speed. Don't worry about that. You can get onto this section. There's no X or any penalty or anything for that. And then just working your way up into fifth gear. So that's a 114.5. definitely, if you can get into the 114s, you are going to be very competitive. Certainly if you're in the 115s though, especially if the track's hotter, you should be having a good race as long as you keep it on track and avoid the smashes. So we'll run it out in cockpit at full speed, and good luck out there. We'll see you out there. We'll see you next time. Thanks.